With the first pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, I don't know who's going to have the pick, but I hope to God it's not us. Welcome everybody to JG9 News, where we talk all things NFL all the time. I'm Jarrogare9, representing the 904 from the 602, and today we are going in-depth on the news that Pittsburgh has submitted a bid to host the 2026 or the 2027 NFL Draft. This upcoming draft is taking place in Detroit. The last one was in Kansas City. 2025 is taking place in Green Bay, but they have not announced any locations beyond 2025, and Pittsburgh has submitted a bid. They will never get the rights to host a Super Bowl because it's too cold, it's too small, outdoor stadium, but NFL Draft could be right up their alley, and they've officially submitted a bid, and we're going to break down the pros and cons of this potential bid and what a draft in Pittsburgh could look like. Now, the biggest pro to me for Pittsburgh is the location downtown. You could easily do the draft downtown, and there's plenty of space if you use the stadium and the surrounding lots with the pedestrian bridge. And to illustrate that, I'm going to use my good friend Google Earth, and I'm going to show you a visualization of what exactly the NFL Draft would look like if it were to take place in Pittsburgh. All right, so I pulled up Google Earth, and I just want to show you with this visualization of what I think the NFL Draft, if it comes to Pittsburgh, would look like. Now, there are two possible locations you could do the draft. One of them that we're talking about is doing it right here where the Steelers play, Acrisure Stadium. It will forever be Heinz Field to me. There is no way they do the draft right here. There's a few reasons for that. Number one, the big one, capacity. Capacity holds about 70,000. You don't want that for an NFL draft. You want this outdoor public gathering where people can fill in the spaces if people leave. You want as many people in there as possible. You never want to turn people away. You do it in a stadium, it becomes a ticketed event at that point, and once people leave, it's tough to fill the seats. The atmosphere won't look that good. If you want a great example, look at what happened in Dallas in 2018. It just didn't look the same on TV. It didn't look the same from an attendance standpoint. It suffered as a result. So they will not do it at Acrisure Stadium. Now, I'm not saying they won't do anything at Acrisure Stadium, but the actual stage, the drafting of the players themselves, that will not take place here. Instead, the place that I was talking about, right across the river, Point State Park. This is actually a perfect location for the draft. So you have the fountain right here. You build the stage right on the fountain. This is your public gathering area. You have all the fans lined up here in this area. You could probably fit a good chunk of people here. We saw that with the Pittsburgh Penguins parade as well. You can fit a lot of people in there. Now, right across the bridge right here, you go underneath the bridge. This is where you set up all your food tents, your merchandise tents, and all that. And you might not be able to fit the NFL Experience stuff. Actually, you will not be able to fit the NFL Experience stuff. Again, Point State Park is about 1.6 million square feet, I should say. I don't know why I said 16. 1.6 million square feet. Kansas City, they had about a 3.1 million square foot area, but this is where you could use Acrisure Stadium, because right here you see there is a pedestrian bridge that takes you from the park and takes you all the way across to this area right here. It takes you to where PNC Park is, and Acrisure. Really, I want to focus on this area, the North Shore Riverfront Park. This is where you would do the NFL Experience stuff. This is where you put your 40-yard dash, your field goal competition, your NFL Combine-related stuff. This is where you would put all that stuff for the fans. This is also where you would put the photo opportunities. If you've ever been to the NFL Draft, you know that they have the year of the draft. They have a thing with each team, each jersey. You could try it on, essentially. You can go underneath it, and you can pretend that you're a player. This is where you would line that up right over here. And that's so you get the space to do the draft. They might be able to do some stuff at Acrisure Stadium as well. So again, if they were to do the draft, my guess is this stage right here alongside the fountain. This is where the general population would be. These are where your food tents, your merchandise places would be. You go across the bridge, and this is where the NFL Combine, NFL Fan Experience stuff would be, with maybe some spillover into Acrisure Stadium if need be. Space is not the primary concern with Pittsburgh. I would not be worried whatsoever from a spatial perspective. You could easily fit in everything you need. Again, Kansas City, that footprint was 3.1 million square feet, and that was absolutely massive. They did not need all that space. It was just the way it was configured. They didn't need all that space. You probably need about 2.5 million square feet. Pittsburgh has that with ease if you use this space over the bridge and across the river. So again, you have Point State Park, 36 acres. That's 1.6 million square feet. And again, like I said, it's half the size of KC's footprint at 3.1 million. But when you factor in Acrisure Stadium right across the street, along with the parking lots you could use over there. You could also use that park right next to the stadium. You could even use PNC Park potentially in the lots there. You can easily do NFL experience things across the river. It's not unprecedented. We saw that in Nashville in 2019, and that went off perfectly. And the distance between Broadway and the stadium there was a fairly substantial hike, and it worked out just fine. It is a lot shorter to go from Point State Park to Acrisure Stadium. On top of that, airport, no real issues there. It goes direct from every city that has an NFL team minus Green Bay, but let's be honest, not a lot of places go direct from Green Bay. I want to show you a comparison. This is a map that I pulled up of everywhere that flies directly into Pittsburgh. You now see the map from everywhere that flies directly into Kansas City, which is where the draft was this past year. And you see Cleveland back in 2021 when they got the NFL draft, everywhere that flies in direct there. Pretty similar, no real issues there. Just for funsies, let's see Green Bay. I don't know how they're going to pull that off in 2025. God help us all. I'm going to be very interested to see how that draft goes. So we will see on that front. There are some cons to Pittsburgh, though. It is not a flawless bid, and this is where they could struggle to get the rights. Number one, hotel space is going to be an issue. You have 18,000 hotel rooms in Pittsburgh in the county, 6,000 in downtown. The metro area for Kansas City and Detroit, for some perspective, double that. You are going to have not a lot of room in Pittsburgh if you want to come in for the draft, especially for a draft that averages about 400,000 people coming in. It's going to be very tough to get 18,000 hotel rooms and be able to accommodate everyone. Again, that's just in the county, 6,000 in downtown. Then again, Green Bay is getting the draft. They do not have as much hotel space, so we'll see what happens there. But Pittsburgh, it's definitely not in their favor, the hotel space. On top of that, remember, the NFL draft attendance in the last 3 non-COVID years, so 2019 in Nashville, 2022 when that took place in Vegas, my favorite draft so far, and 2023 in Kansas City, the average attendance, 404,000. Just keep that in mind. You have 18,000 hotel rooms in the county in Pittsburgh, and obviously not everyone is going to be there for the draft. 404,000 people on average come into Pittsburgh for the NFL draft, and obviously not a lot of people there live in Pittsburgh. So that's going to be very interesting to see how that plays out. Not a lot of hotel space. The other issue, do you want to hold the draft at Point State Park? Like I said, it's a great location downtown. You get a lot of scenic views. It would look gorgeous. That's the most realistic, really the only place you could do the draft. Do you want to do the draft on the water? That's a problem. Think of when the NFL draft is held. Thursday night, Friday night, in late April, at night. If you add water into the mix, it is going to be extremely windy and extremely cold. And it's already pretty cold in Pittsburgh up north. You have an average temperature around that time in the low 50s. And I know from experience, you don't want to draft in the cold weather. I can promise you that. I was at the NFL draft in 2021 in Cleveland. That took place right on the water outside of First Energy Stadium. And let me tell you, my hands were numb walking back to the hotel every single day on Thursday night and Friday night. Saturday was gorgeous, but Thursday night, Friday night, absolutely brutal weather from a cold standpoint. Obviously nothing you can do about the rain, but cold standpoint, you don't want to draft on the water. I'm not sure NFL officials want to draft on the water necessarily. Kansas City was already pretty cold, and that wasn't on the water. Detroit, we'll see what happens there. Green Bay, we'll see what happens there. It's really the only place you could do the draft in Pittsburgh is on the water, and it would probably get very, very cold. I'm not sure that would be the best experience for the fans and for everyone involved. So the pros for Pittsburgh, you have the space downtown to do it. You have plenty of space if you use a stadium and the surrounding lots with a pedestrian bridge. They've held big events before. The Pittsburgh Penguins held a victory parade there for the Stanley Cup. 600,000 people came downtown. No issues there. You can easily do a draft in Pittsburgh in terms of having the personnel and the space. The cons, weather, hotel space. Then again, they're going to Green Bay, so who knows? All bets are off. Do I think Pittsburgh gets the draft in 2026 or 2027? I think they've got a very good shot. I think probably the next 2 drafts after Green Bay. Denver's wanted to bid for a while. I could see Denver and Pittsburgh getting the next 2 drafts. Usually the NFL draft, as of late, has gone to cities that will probably never get a Super Bowl, or never get another one, I should say. Detroit is getting the draft. They had the Super Bowl back in 2006, or Super Bowl 40 in 1982 with Super Bowl 16, but they'll probably never get another one again. Green Bay will never get one. Kansas City will never get one, although they almost got Super Bowl 49. Cleveland will never get one, and they got the 2021 draft. You get the idea. Northern cities, usually where the NFL likes to hold the draft, spread it around, and Pittsburgh, definitely a viable option. They'll have to figure out the hotel situation, and space-wise, if Point State Park is not available, they might be completely screwed. But I can only see the draft taking place at Point State Park. It's a great location. You just got to worry about the water situation. Obviously, nothing you can really do about that. But what are your thoughts? Do you think Pittsburgh should host the NFL draft? What city do you want to see host the NFL draft? Have you ever been to the NFL draft? Let me know in the comments down below. And that's going to do for this episode of JG9 News. Be sure you like and subscribe. It helps the channel out a lot. And be sure to check out my main channel, JaguarGator9, where we talk all things NFL history all the time. Until next time, this is JaguarGator9 signing off. And as always, go Jags.